Canada specifically, why are you deciding to end trade talks with Canada, and what rate are you looking to set?
So Canada put a charge on some of our companies, and Canada's been a very difficult country to deal with over the years. We hear Canada, we have a great relationship with the people of Canada, but it's been very difficult. And they put a charge, and they were a little bit early, we found out about it. So, and we have all the cards. We have every single one. We don't want to do anything bad, but they have, economically, we have such power over Canada. I'd rather not use it, but they did something with our tech companies today trying to copy Europe. They copied Europe. It's not going to work out well for Europe either, and it's not going to work out well for Canada. They were foolish to do it. So I said we're going to stop all negotiations with Canada right now until they straighten out their act. Okay?
Is there anything Canada can do to change your mind about this situation?
Well, no, they put a tax on companies that were American companies that they shouldn't have, very severe tax. And yeah, I guess they could remove it. They will, but it doesn't matter to me. We have all the cards.
Trump says 3% is a very severe tax, but when we're talking about tariffs in the hundreds, it's no big deal. Anyways, folks, Mark Carney is currently letting Canada down in a major way. He just backed down on his recently announced digital services tax. Donald Trump, in a 2-minute speech you just watched, got Canada to pause a multi-billion-dollar tax at the very last second. And it took all of 5 minutes of pressure to do it. I'm not even kidding. That's where we're at as a country. It's slightly pathetic, if you ask me. Canada's digital service tax was going to be an approximate $2.7 billion tax on companies like Meta, Amazon, and Google. And just like that, in a matter of 48 hours, it got paused. Literally hours before the first retroactive payment was due. They were planning to go back to 2022 and collect retroactive payments. And of course, Trump, say what you want about the guy, but he wasn't having any of it. He jumped in and said Canada's making a huge mistake, and straight up said he was shutting down trade talks unless this tax got scrapped. Well, guess what? Here we are, and Carney has already scrapped it. So we're going to walk you through exactly how we got here and why this tax was such a disaster, and how Mark Carney managed to fold like a lawn chair on one of the biggest trade missteps in recent history. Okay, buckle up, because this one literally makes my blood boil. But before we get into it, please smash that like button for the algorithm. It helps push this video in front of others who may benefit from viewing it. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like honest Canadian commentary. All right, so let's start with this tax and what it actually was. So last year, the Liberals pushed through this thing called the digital services tax. It was supposed to make American tech giants pay their fair share of taxes on the money they make off Canadians online. So this is things like ads, streaming, e-commerce, all of that stuff. It sounds pretty obvious, right? This was supposed to be a 3% tax on revenue, and it was being backdated to January of 2022. Doing this was an error, in my opinion. If you wanted to implement this, you start taxing from the time you implement it. I mean, imagine your boss coming up to you and saying, hey, we're docking your pay from 2 years ago because we changed the rules just now. That's what Canada was trying to do to the biggest companies in the US. So here comes Trump, who, by the way, is in full campaign beast mode, and he drops the hammer. On Friday, he says, trade talks with Canada are off the table unless we kill this tax. And then, by Sunday night, Carney caves. The DST is paused just like that quickly. The finance minister literally rushed out a statement saying the tax would be rescinded in anticipation of a new trade agreement with the US. And Carney, who up until that point was acting like he had all the leverage in the world, suddenly decided to get really quiet. This whole thing was about to explode. Trump was not bluffing, and everyone in Ottawa knew it. So the pressure was absolutely ridiculous. And if you're sitting there thinking, wait, didn't the other countries already do this? Yes, the UK, France, and Italy all have digital taxes right now. Freeland came out and said it was unfair that Canada didn't get the same tax benefits as those countries in Europe. But let's not pretend this tax was going to help everyday Canadians either. Because that $2 billion, you really think Meta is gonna eat that cost out of goodwill? I mean, that's not going to happen. They were just gonna pass it on to all of us. Higher ad prices for small businesses, higher delivery fees, higher prices across the board. We were the ones that were gonna be flipping the bill. Even Kevin O'Leary chimed in. He called it the dumbest tax ever. He said Carney had no other income options because Trudeau buried the economy in debt with Bill C-69, which, by the way, is basically a no pipelines ever bill. No energy, no revenue, no growth. And now Carney's desperate for cash. Unfortunately, it was desperation disguised as nationalism. Trump, in his Fox News interview, basically said that Canada relies entirely on the US, not the other way around. He called us a very tough country to deal with, accused us of slamming farmers with 400% tariffs, and then he dropped the "frankly, Canada should be the 51st state" line again. This remark is getting too repetitive for my liking. How do you guys feel about it? Please drop your thoughts in the comments. So the timing of all of this is pretty brutal. This tax was set to kick in this morning. They announced the pause Sunday night, like the last possible second. This is a complete disaster. It's honestly a little bit of an embarrassment for our country. And the worst part, Carney didn't do this because he thought it was the right move. He did it because he had no choice. Trump had all the cards and he played them pretty well. So now we've got to wonder, like, what happens next? Trade talks are supposed to resume. Carney says there's a 30-day window to strike a deal. But if this is how he negotiates, we're in deep shit. The guy's getting pushed around like a dollar store shopping cart. And we haven't even gotten to the big ticket items like steel, energy, or autos. They're not even remotely resolved. So this tax, this wasn't even about tech. It was about testing power. And Canada flunked the test terribly. Trump said this tax discriminates against US companies. Although every company that generates revenue in a country should have to pay taxes in that country. That seems fair, right? They are benefiting from that country's population and money. So why should that country not get a piece of the pie? The threshold was 20 million in Canadian digital revenue. That's basically just Meta, Amazon, Google, and Apple. Every giant platform Canadians use on a daily basis. And then there's the very hilarious part. Carney walking out of his office, dodging questions from reporters. Will you back down from the tax that he was asked? And then he mumbles something about complex negotiations and pretends it's all part of the plan. Even the language in the government statement made it clear that they're scrambling. They kept using the term Canada's new government, like they're trying to distance themselves from the old one. And let's talk about what this means long term. For starters, Canada is looking weak. We just showed the world we cannot stand by our own policies when the pressure hits. And this wasn't a war or like a missile crisis. This was simply a 3% tax. And we folded on that. Secondly, every other negotiation going forward is now going to be 10 times harder. If Trump sees we'll cave under pressure, what's he going to ask for next? And then third, this is the most important one. If we're going to be taxing the digital economy, we better be prepared for a blowback, because this isn't 1995 anymore. Everything is digital now. And if the US pulls services or jacks up their own fees on our tech exports, we are pretty toast. And look, we haven't even touched on Alberta yet. Danielle Smith is stirring the pot again, comparing Alberta's immigration control ambitions to Quebec's. She says they should be able to select migrants based on economic needs, not just federal targets. And this is a valid point. Honestly, say what you will, but it's not that different from the old points-based system we had under Harper. There used to be a logic behind immigration, and now it's just pure chaos. Also, quick PSA before we wrap. Someone in Oakville is pretending to deliver fryers to steal your mail. It's literally swiping envelopes from mailboxes in broad daylight. There is footage out there. And why? Is there money in a mailbox? Like, I don't even understand this. But identity theft's on the rise. And this is just the latest version of it. So keep your stuff safe and lock it up. You can't trust anybody these days. And speaking of trust, Mark Carney thought he could walk into the ring with Trump and hold his ground. But he didn't just lose, he got humiliated. And so did Canada. DST is now paused. Trade talks are back on, or so we hope, but make no mistake, this was a Trump win. And Canada just got served. All right, folks, thanks for hanging with me. If you're still here, thanks for watching. If you want more unfiltered Canadian takes, please give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.